President-elect Joe Biden is continuing with the transition and announcing cabinet picks. Meanwhile, outgoing President Squatters' Rights fired one of his lawyers after she claimed the election was rigged as part of a vast conspiracy involving the CIA, the Republican governor of Georgia, and the former president of Venezuela, who died 7 years ago. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. You know, I hate to jump the gun here and prematurely call the election, but it's starting to look like Donald Trump lost by a lot. Joe Biden's popular vote lead is now over 6 million. And in total, he has more votes than any president-elect in history. Or to put it another, more fun way, more people came out to vote against Donald Trump than have ever come out to vote against any presidential candidate in the history of the United States. And Donald, if you ever get mad when you see President Biden, know that it likely only happened because of you. Joe Biden ran for president a bunch of times before this and never finished in the top tier, but against you, it turns out he was the perfect choice. Biden was like that weird kid in school that nobody hung out with because he smelled like garlic, and then a vampire attacked prom and everyone said, "Quick, get Stinky Kevin." And he'll never say it, but you know when Biden told Obama he was going to run for president again, Obama must have thought, "I'm sorry, you didn't think being my vice president was the best job you were ever going to have? You thought it was a stepping stone to bigger things?" It's like a Walmart greeter getting hired and saying, "One day I'm going to run this place." But thanks to Donald Trump, it happened because more people came out to vote against Donald Trump than have ever come out to vote against any presidential candidate in the history of the United States. And sure, we all know that in the back of our minds that millions of people did vote for Donald Trump, and that speaks to a great darkness we cannot fully handle, but that thought isn't going to get you up and on the Peloton in the morning, so let's just bookmark it. On top of Biden's historic vote totals, Georgia just certified its results after a vigorous hand recount, and the Trump campaign lost a major court case in Pennsylvania where the judge, a Republican member of the Federalist Society, did not hold back in his contempt for the Trump legal team's incompetence.
A federal judge in Pennsylvania completely tearing apart the Trump legal strategy that was spearheaded by Rudy Giuliani. The judge in this case, Matthew Brand, tearing apart the claims by the Trump team that they wanted to invalidate the vote in Pennsylvania and throw out nearly 7 million votes. The judge in this case saying this: "One might expect that when seeking such a startling outcome, a plaintiff would come formidably armed with compelling legal arguments and factual proof of rampant corruption. That has not happened. Instead, this court has been presented with strained legal arguments without merit and speculative accusations unpled in the operative complaint and unsupported by evidence."
That's about as harsh as it gets for a federal judge. That's like hearing Paul Hollywood say underbaked. Just devastating. Netflix should really put up a warning at the top of that show. I also like the part where the judge says you'd expect the Trump legal team to come armed with compelling legal arguments and factual proof. Judge, take a hint when they don't come in with briefcases. Lawyers normally have things with them, papers and such, called evidence. They have younger lawyers behind them with file boxes. Rudy and his greasers walk in with iPhones and Cliff Bars and a thermos they all share. They think this is a high school forensics team competition where the kid with the weirdest adult energy wins by talking longest. Why would you expect this crew to roll in with proof? It's like expecting my burnout cousin to come to Thanksgiving on time with sweet potatoes. You know he's going to show up at 10 p.m. with meth and a woman he met at a casino. "Hey, this is Sapphire, and she's going to be a stripper magician. Show him your stuff, babe." By the way, I want to know how Rudy and his gang keep getting court dates to even bring this to a judge. They have had multiple days in court, and the election was, 3 weeks ago? Do you know how long it takes for regular people to get a court date? In 2017, I was driving a Zipcar in Manhattan. My dog Frisbee jumped in the front seat and started scanning radio stations, and I was startled, and I swerved into a halal cart near the curb. It was the most yelling ever heard in New York City. The halal vendor sued me. Zipcar countersued both me and the halal guy. Meanwhile, Frisbee is suing Sirius Satellite Radio for changing 40s on 4 to Channel 73, the confusion that started this whole debacle. This happened 3 years ago, and we have a hearing scheduled for 2025, and that was only because I pulled some strings. Anyway, I think I was talking about something. Oh, right. And now, prominent Republicans such as the governors of Arkansas and Ohio, Michigan Congressman Fred Upton, and Pennsylvania Senator Pat Toomey are calling Joe Biden the president-elect and saying the transition should begin. Even longtime Trump friend and ally Chris Christie had this to say about the Trump legal team's efforts to overturn the election.
"I've been a supporter of the president's. I voted for him twice. But elections have consequences. And we cannot continue to act as if something happened here that didn't happen. Quite frankly, The conduct of the president's legal team has been a national embarrassment. They allege fraud outside the courtroom, but when they go inside the courtroom, they don't plead fraud and they don't argue fraud. If you're unwilling to come forward and present the evidence, it must mean the evidence doesn't exist.
You know it's bad when Chris Christie, whose main job for years was standing behind Trump at press conferences like Bobby Bacala waiting for his next humiliating errand, calls you a national embarrassment. But Christie's other point is important, too. Trump's lawyers only claim there's fraud when they're outside the courtroom, never when they're inside the courtroom, because court is different from TV. In court, you get real trouble for lying, but when they're in front of TV cameras, you hear all these Trump lawyers say crazy, ambiguous, debunked stuff about dead voters and election software and affidavits or whatever. In fact, in that very hearing, Rudy Giuliani ultimately lost. He seemed confused about basic legal terms like strict scrutiny and admitted in court that the campaign was not actually alleging that fraud had taken place, which, it should be noted, is like saying in a murder trial, hi, I'm the alleged victim and I'm still alive.
What standard of review should I apply in this case?
On a motion to dismiss? Well, I mean, I think the normal one.
Are you arguing then that strict scrutiny should apply here?
No, the normal scrutiny should apply. If we had alleged fraud, yes, but this is not a fraud case.
Actually, it is a fraud case in the sense that it's a case brought by frauds. Like when someone brings a guitar case, they are also probably a fraud. If this wasn't a fraud case, then what was it? You guys keep saying there's voter fraud in public, but then not arguing there's voter fraud in court. It's like how you say in front of your kids, better be good this year, Santa might not come, and then at 3 a.m. you're on the floor in your living room drinking scotch, trying to tie a bow around a lightsaber, screaming, paper keeps ripping. Oh, hey, why don't we just have it like peeking out from behind the couch? It's like a little piece of lightsaber. All right, I'll wrap it. Well, I just think it would. The thing is, they get it as a gift. Okay. In fact, they haven't alleged any actual voter fraud at all because it doesn't exist. Instead, they've resorted to crazy conspiracy theories about election software and international communists. And you know, one thing I'm definitely not going to miss about the Trump era is the Mad Lib style news reporting. Every time you hear about something the Trump team said, it's like an old Dennis Miller joke from the 80s. Brian Kemp and Hugo Chavez are teaming up to steal this election like Kitty and Peter Carruthers going for the gold at Sarajevo. Okay, babe? Another thing I won't miss is trying to follow the rotating cast of fringe right-wing weirdos that come in and out of the Trump world. Like, you remember this guy, Joseph DiGenova, the Trump lawyer and right-wing lunatic who looks like he got busted for trying to sneak his own pasta sauce onto a Pan Am flight? What you guys got is no better than ketchup. He basically got banned. He got banned from Fox News for anti-Semitism. That's like getting kicked off Bravo for drinking wine in a hot tub. DiGenova was briefly one of Trump's lawyers during the Mueller investigation and then got dumped like a week later, even though he's the only question he's ever answered is, what if Dennis Franz wasn't so sexy? He was standing alongside Rudy Giuliani at that insane press conference they held last week where Rudy reenacted a scene from My Cousin Vinny, called the Philadelphia Eagles a basketball team, and had what looked like droplets of cerebrospinal fluid leaking from his brain. I guess Rudy dyed his hair frantically in a gas station bathroom like Richard Kimball in The Fugitive. I mean, if I saw that coming out of my radiator, I would be pounding on my super's door. Anyway, these are the only people Trump has left because no legitimate lawyer wants to be a part of this unhinged assault on American democracy. In fact, last week, the Trump legal team tried to delay that hearing in federal court to overturn the election because in Pennsylvania, as Reuters reported, most of his lawyers quit. At this point, the Trump legal team is like CVS at midnight. Sure, they're open, but nobody actually works there. And Trump is like the guy trying to pay for Arizona iced tea at the photo station register who will wait for eternity and doesn't seem to mind. But by far the craziest addition to the Trump cinematic universe has been a lawyer named Sidney Powell. And if you thought Rudy was bonkers, this lady is crazier than a cereal mascot. She was also at the Trump campaign's press conference last week and has been all over right-wing media claiming not just that the election was rigged, but that millions of ballots were somehow faked or stolen or whatever as part of an elaborate conspiracy involving the Republican governor of Georgia, the CIA, and the late Venezuelan leader Hugo Chavez, who died in 2013. Until now, Powell might have been best known for playing the uptight teacher in every heavy metal video, or for going on Lou Dobbs' show and making claims about desperate migrants fleeing poverty and violence. that were too insane even for Lou Dobbs.
We simply cannot tolerate the continued invasion of this country when Americans are suffering every day. The national debt is exploding. We have diseases spreading across the country that are causing polio-like paralysis of our children. It's one thing after the other.
Cindy, you can't very well blame that disease on illegal immigrants. We don't know the cause of it. I don't know that that's, I don't think that's fair. A lot of, but there are plenty of reasons to keep this country secure, including making sure that everyone is healthy when they're brought into the country, without question. Right? Is that fair?
That is fair, but that is part of the problem. We don't know where the diseases are coming from.
Well, that's, you know what? I think that with that, we're going to leave it.
It's always fascinating to watch these people have a brief moment of self-awareness. You'd think after that interview, Lou Dobbs would have maybe, I don't know, pulled it back a little. It's like when you're at a party and everyone's feeling good, then it gets late and someone says, let's get on the roof and jump in the pool, and everybody else says, yeah! But then you remember the apartment is 12 stories high and there's not a pool, so you quietly sneak out the back. But then the next night they're like, we're having another party, and you're like, all right. Anyway, that's a psycho who showed up to the official Trump legal team's press conference on Thursday and claimed not just that mail-in ballots were fraudulent or that dead people had voted, but that there was a vast international communist conspiracy involving a dead Venezuelan leader to subvert the election.
What we are really dealing with here and uncovering more by the day is the massive influence of communist money through Venezuela, Cuba, and likely China in the interference with our elections here in the United States. The Dominion voting systems, the Smartmatic technology software, and the software that goes in other computerized voting systems here as well, not just Dominion, were created in Venezuela at the direction of Hugo Chavez.
You know, she doesn't make a lot of sense, but at least she has the same voice as an orphanage headmistress whose catchphrase is, you ain't never getting adopted. Still nice to know that dead people who are voting are Hugo Chavez? Who else voted in this election? Boutros Ghali? So Powell alleged a vast conspiracy involving Hugo Chavez to help Joe Biden win the presidential election, and yet, curiously, she kept refusing to provide evidence of this vast scheme when pressed, even by friendly Fox News hosts who were basically desperate to agree with her as long as she could provide a shred of evidence.
So, Sidney, you feel that you will be able to prove this. Do you have the software in your possession? Do you have the hardware in your possession? How will you prove this, Sidney?
Well, I've got lots of ways to prove it, Maria, but I'm not going to tell on national TV what all we have.
So we invited Sidney Powell on the show. We would have given her the whole hour. We would have given her the entire week, actually, and listened quietly the whole time at rapt attention. That's a big story. But she never sent us any evidence, despite a lot of requests, polite requests, not a page. When we kept pressing, she got angry and told us to stop contacting her.
Wow, you know you're in full loony territory when even Tucker Carlson won't go along with what you're selling. He was begging her to come on his show. Good Lord, it's easy to get on television these days. Unhinged people used to have to stand behind a reporter on location and jump up and down yelling Baba Booey. Anyway, the point is Sidney Powell was somehow even too insane for the Trump legal team, which, by the way, repeatedly told everyone they considered her a member of that legal team. They tweeted many times that she was working with Rudy in an official capacity for the Trump campaign. The official GOP account tweeted out a clip of her remarks, and she appeared at the official campaign press conference on Thursday. But I guess she went too far even for Trump over the weekend when she went on the far-right Newsmax channel and claimed that the Republican governor of Georgia, a staunch Trump ally, was somehow part of the plot along with Hugo Chavez and also the CIA.
Georgia's probably going to be the first state I'm going to blow up, and Mr. Kemp and the Secretary of State need to go with it because they're in on the Dominion scam with their last-minute purchase or award of a contract to Dominion of $100 million. The State Bureau of Investigation for Georgia ought to be looking into the financial benefits received by Mr. Kemp and the Secretary of State's family about that time. And another benefit Dominion was created to award is what I would call election insurance. That's why Hugo Chavez had it created in the first place. But I also wonder where he got the technology, where it actually came from, because I think it's hammer and scorecard from the CIA.
Can you tell us anything? Can you make some news with us here tonight? Tell us anything new that you're going to present in that filing in Georgia?
Well, I can't say that yet, but hopefully this week we will get it ready to file.
Sydney,
and it will be biblical.
Okay, wow. So the governor of Georgia is being bribed by an election software company created by Hugo Chavez as part of a vast plot involving the CIA to spread communism across the globe. Because first of all, the CIA loves helping out communists. We all remember when the CIA helped install Fidel Castro in the famously successful Bay of Pigs invasion. Second of all, wait, why am I saying second? Why am I breaking this down point by point? Like anyone watching this is still on the fence thinking, okay, all right, but what about your next point? And apparently, I'm not the only one who feels this way because the Trump campaign issued a statement yesterday suddenly distancing itself from Powell.
Just over a week after President Trump named attorney Sidney Powell to his legal team in his effort to overturn the results of the 2020 election, the president's legal team now says that Sidney Powell is not a member of his legal team. Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellis, two of the attorneys for the president's effort, saying in a statement, quote, Sidney Powell is practicing law on her own. She is not a member of the Trump legal team. She is also not a lawyer for the president in his personal capacity.
It's both insane that they're trying to pretend she was never part of the legal team when she was literally standing at an official Trump press conference, and also believable that someone could wander into a Trump press conference and say they're his lawyer. I mean, she was identified on TV as his lawyer, so there's no getting out of that one. But what about DeGeneva? I'd buy he heard there was a thing where you don't need a mask and showed up. Hey, brought my own sauce. Okay? Just if you need it. By the way, as a side note, you don't need to announce who's joining and leaving a legal team. A lot of times people show up to court and the lawyers are there, and then you know. Not everyone tweets, I've retained Januzzi and Januzzi in my wrongful arrest for a DUI. I look forward to pleading down to time served. Personally, I'm just disappointed because Powell kept promising blockbuster evidence of fraud, and now I guess we'll never see it. She even used an especially memorable phrase.
This looks like the effort to carry out an end game in the effort against him. Do you concur?
Oh, absolutely. And it's been organized and conducted with the help of Silicon Valley people, the big tech companies, the social media companies, and even the media companies. And I'm going to release the Kraken.
I guess the only Kraken we ended up seeing was in Rudy Giuliani's hair dye. They have no evidence, which is why lawyers keep quitting or getting fired or laughed out of court, because this whole thing isn't actually about evidence. It's about manufacturing a conspiracy theory that will animate Trump's base for years to come. It's just another scam, like Trump's many previous scams. In terms of actual legal arguments, the Trump's team case is deader than
Hugo Chavez.
This has been A Closer Look. God's Love We Deliver cooks and brings over 2 million meals a year to men, women, and children living with HIV, AIDS, cancer, and other serious illnesses, and they need your help now more than ever. If you're watching this online, you can hit the donate button. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask. We love you.